The sun was setting over Alexandria, casting long shadows across temples, churches, and battered walls. For centuries, Egypt had been Rome's most precious jewel, the land that fed the empire, guarded by legions, ruled by governors, and watched by gods old and new. But in its final days under Roman rule, Egypt stood at the crossroads of faith, strategy, and war. Long before swords clashed, a quieter struggle was already shaping Egypt's fate. Faith. Christianity had taken deep root among the people, growing strong even when emperors tried to control belief. Egyptian Christians formed a powerful identity of their own, often divided from imperial authority in Constantinople. Faith was no longer just worship, it became resistance, unity, and survival. While Rome argued theology, the people of Egypt learned to endure. As centuries passed, the Roman Empire itself weakened. Its armies were stretched thin, its politics poisoned by rivalry. Egypt, once carefully protected, became vulnerable. Yet it remained priceless. Whoever controlled Egypt controlled grain, wealth, and access between Africa, Asia, and the Mediterranean. This made it a strategic prize no empire could ignore. Then came a new force rising from the deserts of Arabia, disciplined, united, and driven by belief. Their leaders understood something Rome had forgotten. Strategy is not only about armies, but timing. They moved swiftly, avoiding direct destruction, cutting supply lines, and offering agreements instead of chaos. Fort after fort fell, not always by fire, but by calculation. The Roman defenders fought bravely. Fortresses like Babylon and Egypt resisted fiercely, but reinforcements never truly came. The empire was too distant, too divided, too exhausted. Local populations, worn down by heavy taxation and religious pressure, no longer felt loyalty to distant emperors. Faith once again reshaped destiny. When Alexandria finally fell, it was not just a military defeat. It was the closing of a chapter written over nearly 7 centuries. Roman Egypt, the land of pharaohs turned province of Caesars and bishops, passed into history. The war ended not with total ruin, but with transformation. Egypt did not disappear. Its people, culture, and faith endured, reshaped under new rulers. Strategy had won the battles. War had changed borders, but belief had guided hearts long before the first sword was raised. And so the fall of Roman Egypt reminds us of a timeless truth. Empires rarely collapse in a single moment. They fall when faith shifts, strategy fails, and war arrives to seal what history has already decided. Night fell over Alexandria, but the city did not sleep. Its harbor still whispered of past glory. Ships that once carried Rome's power now stood silent. Inside the walls, fear and uncertainty grew. The empire that had ruled Egypt for centuries was no longer a shield. It had become a memory struggling to survive. After the long siege, resistance weakened. Roman commanders argued among themselves, cut off from support and hope. Supplies ran low. Morale collapsed. Strategy, once Rome's greatest weapon, had turned against it. Every delay strengthened the new rising force outside the gates. Beyond the walls, discipline ruled. The invading army moved with purpose, not chaos. They avoided unnecessary destruction, choosing patience over rage. Their leadership understood Egypt's value, not just as land, but as a people with deep faith and tradition. This understanding changed everything. Many Egyptians, exhausted by taxes and religious pressure, saw change not as doom, but as release. Villages opened their gates. Agreements replaced massacres. The war, though real and deadly, unfolded with calculation rather than blind violence. History was shifting quietly. When Alexander, the moment did not feel like an ending. It felt like a turning page. Roman banners were lowered. Centuries of imperial rule faded into silence. Yet the city remained alive, breathing, adapting. Libraries, markets, and streets continued to echo with life. Faith once again stood at the center of transformation. Egypt's spiritual identity, shaped through centuries of belief and struggle, found space to survive. Power changed hands, but the soul of the land endured. This was not merely conquest, it was transition. The fall of Roman Egypt reshaped the balance of the world. Trade routes shifted. New powers rose. Old empires retreated into memory. What had once been Rome's lifeline became the foundation of a new era spreading across continents. And so the story teaches us this. Empires fall not only by swords, but by silence, division, and lost purpose. Strategy decides the battlefield. War decides the moment. But faith decides what lives on after the dust settles. Yet the echoes of Rome still lingered in Egypt's stones. Broken statues, silent forts, and fading inscriptions whispered stories of an empire that once believed itself eternal. But history had moved forward, and Egypt now stood within a new order shaped by belief, discipline, and careful rule. The new rulers faced a land unlike any other, ancient, proud, and deeply spiritual. Egypt was not conquered by force alone. It was governed through understanding. Local communities were allowed to live, work, and worship. Stability slowly replaced fear. Trade revived along the Nile, and caravans once again crossed deserts carrying grain, knowledge, and culture. Roman authority had collapsed, but its influence did not vanish overnight. Laws, roads, and administration remained woven into daily life. Yet their meaning changed. Power no longer flowed from distant emperors, but from leaders closer to their people. Strategy now meant balance between order and tolerance, control and cooperation. Faith continued to shape destiny. The old religious conflicts that once divided Egypt under Roman rule began to ease. People adapted, blending traditions with new beliefs. Instead of destruction, transformation became the defining force of the age. History rarely ends with fire. More often, it reshapes itself quietly. Beyond Egypt, the world was changing rapidly. The Mediterranean no longer belonged to a single empire. Trade routes shifted east and south. New centers of learning, governance, and influence began to rise. Egypt, once Rome's lifeline, became a bridge between civilizations rather than a possession. War had opened the door, but it was strategy that kept it open. Administration, diplomacy, and patience secured what armies alone never could. The fall of Roman Egypt became a lesson studied by generations. That empires collapse not when walls fall, but when purpose fades. And so the story closes not with ruins, but with continuity. Egypt endured, faith endured. Civilization moved forward under a different banner, carrying echoes of Rome while shaping a future Rome could never imagine. Because history is not only about who wins battles, it is about who understands the moment when the world is ready to change.